All right. So I am joined today by my good friend, Becky Jones.
Hey.
She has two adopted daughters and three other children that are biological. And Becky and I first met because we are members of the same church. So we met in church, and then we've just been good friends, became good friends about the last 3 years, and bonded over yoga and adopted kids and food and lots of different things. So I just wanted Becky to come on today and tell us a little bit about her story and about how she came to decide to adopt, and then what happened in the adoption. So I always like to ask adoptive parents what made you interested in adoption in the first place.
Okay, so I was thinking about our story, and when I first, the adoption bug got put in me was when I was in high school. And I took this child development class, and different parents would come in with their kids, and some of them were adopted. And there was this lady that came in, and she had, I think it was two African American children. And I was just listening attentively. Is that a word? And I went home and I told my parents, and I was like, we've got to adopt. So I put a picture of a little girl, I think she was Hispanic. I put her in our family picture, and I was like, Mom, come on, we got to adopt. But we had already, my parents had 8 kids already. So that wasn't going to happen, but I thought that was a funny thing. And then, I don't know if I thought I would adopt, but that's what I like that's my first memory of thinking about adoption. And then so my husband and I, we met young. We met in college. We got married 4 months after we met. It was crazy. And so I was 19, really young, came from a big family. So I was like, okay, we want to have a lot of kids. And my husband came from a family that had 4 kids in his family. And so we're like, okay, maybe we can join in the middle and have 6 kids. But then we had our first child, and my babies are big and my frame is small. Well, medium, I don't know. Anyway, my first baby was 9'15", so just a huge baby. And I was like, okay, maybe this isn't as easy as I thought. So then we're like, okay, let's compromise a little bit more. Let's have 4 kids, because you can create your own life, right? But okay, so we had 2 boys, 23 months apart. And then I had 2 miscarriages, because we're like, okay, well, let's try it again, because that's just the thing you do. And I had 2 miscarriages. It was really hard. I was hard because I was in shock, this is really happening. So our first one was at 13 weeks, and then our second one was 7 weeks. I was like, okay, well, maybe this is going to be harder. Do we want to keep trying? Yes. So we kept trying, and then we had another baby. And the whole pregnancy with her, I was just so nervous because of our miscarriages, and I took it way easy. And then we ended up having her. She's really, really healthy. And like I said, when I was pregnant, my babies were all out front, like a giant basketball. So when I went to deliver her, the doctors, the anesthesiologist is like, bend over. And I was like, I can't bend over. There's a huge baby here. So I had 2 epidurals with our boys, just fine, no problems, no pain. And he went to put the epidural in, and he had such a hard time. I don't know if it was him or just, well, I don't know what happened. But after I had delivered her, and he had me sit on a pillow, so I was sideways the whole time when I was delivering. That's kind of weird. That's not normal. And so I went home after having her, and I was in major pain that night. And it was really hard because she was crying, newborns and everything, and I was in so much pain. We call back, and they're like, in order to come in, you have to check in through the emergency room again. And we're just like, I don't know if they'd really be able to do much, because we knew it was connected with the epidural. And so to make a long story short, I was in major back pain for several years. I still kind of have pain, but it's been 12 years. So I think I can manage it, and it's been a lot better. But so I called back the next day and I talked to him, and he's like, yeah, I kept hitting bone when I was putting your epidural in. I was like, hitting bone? That's not normal. So anyway, he paid for my MRI, and I went and got an MRI, and the doctor said basically it's nerve damage. It may or may not ever heal. So do you want me to just keep talking?
Yeah.
Okay. So it was really hard to have a newborn and have back pain. And I just felt so depressed. I was like, this is horrible. It was like survival. But I was like, okay, I got to just try to be the best mom I can be. So that was hard. That was really hard. Anyway, so we knew that we wanted to have more kids because we came from big families and we love children. And we're like, okay, we don't feel like this is the end for us. So we thought about it, and we're like, okay, well, because of the experience with like huge babies and hard pregnancies, like towards the end especially, I would like waddle and felt like I had a bruised pelvis. It was really painful. So I was like, okay, well, I don't feel like I want to have more biological babies just because of the hard pregnancies, but we feel like we want to have more children. So we're like, okay, well, let's look into adoption. So we looked into adoption, and we felt really good about it. So we started doing our paperwork, and as you know, it's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
A lot of like background checks, and there's a home study, but we're really excited, gung-ho about it. So we found an agency that we felt good about. We went to their little meeting and stuff, so we felt really good because they pump you up and they really make you think positive things. And it was so hard. The competition, especially here in Utah, is brutal. Like there at the time were so many parents, probably still, wanting to adopt. I think part of it is we come from an LDS community where there's a lot of children. Everybody wants big families. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people do. And anyway, so we started showing our profile. So with adoption, you create like a little scrapbook of your family. And that's when our youngest was, I think she was about 2. So we wanted our children like 2 years apart. The first 2 were 2 years apart, and then there was a 3-year gap. And then I was like, okay, well, my husband and I were like, okay, well, let's try so we can have it 2 years apart. And we started showing birth moms, and let me look. I went back and I looked at my journals because you kind of forget little details, but there were just a few different things we got chosen, and then the birth mom decided to parent. There were several different things, but we were just like, so we're getting to the point where we're like just almost like desperate. Like we really wanted our daughter to have a sister, so we're like, only show birth moms that are expecting girls. And so it came to the point where there were 3 different situations, and we showed our profile to all 3 of the women that were expecting. And there was one that was expecting a biracial girl in Arizona, and we got matched with her. She chose us, and we had a conference call with her, and we were so excited. And she was scheduled to be induced. So we got our plane tickets. We flew down to Arizona, and it was scary because there was this part on our flight where we went down to land, like we were landing in Phoenix, and there was another plane coming, so we had to go back up and like circle around. We're like, what's going on? And I was sitting in front of like these 2 large men, and I was in the middle. It was so scary. But anyway, so we finally landed, and it was really hot because it was summer in Arizona. And we were scheduled to have like a dinner that night with our birth mom and our like our counselor. What was it? She was like our
Social worker.
And she said, well, they couldn't get a hold of her. And we're like, okay, this is weird. So we just like bummed around, and then we found a hotel, but we were still really nervous because we knew that she could change her mind or different things. And so we're just like, okay, well, let's just hope and pray that everything will work out. So the next day she was supposed to be induced, and we were in contact with our social worker, and she's like, okay, well, she's scheduled to be induced at the hospital. That's all they'll tell us. And so we're like, okay. So we just kind of drove around and like parked in the hospital parking lot. We were so excited. And they kept like not hearing from her. I'm like, what's going on? So finally we're like, well, we want to talk with you. So we found out where our social worker was at. We went to her hotel and we were talking with her, and they're like, we haven't heard from her. We think she's abused, so being controlled by her boyfriend or whatever. We're like, what is going on? And the nerves were heightened anyway because we were, I don't know, there's so much that goes into adoption.
A lot of emotion, yeah.
Especially like we were in it. We were going to get the baby that day, and my hormones were out of whack that day anyway, and it was so hot. And anyway, so we didn't hear from her, but we're like, okay, well, things can, happen in the split second. So we're like, okay, well, just keep in touch with us. We're going to go around to different stores. We're going to go to lunch, but I couldn't eat much because I was so nervous. And I was starting to get emotional, like, what's going on? So we're in Hobby Lobby, and we get a call from the main director of this place. I'm not going to say the names of the agencies just because. But he's like talking to my husband, and my husband's like, what? And he said, this birth mom was never pregnant. And so we're like, what? So it was a scam, but it was a major scam. Like, how did we get to this point where she was scheduled to be induced? Like, there were a lot of red flags along the way. Like, how did you know that she was expecting a girl? Like, did you not have proof of like ultrasound? Like, there were these little red flags, but we were so excited to get a baby that I don't think we really saw them. And so come to find out, it was a scam. Like, maybe she was working with her boyfriend to get money. I don't know what happened. But I was crying. I talked to my family a lot. We're just like, what do we do? And it was so hot on top of that, like I said. And it was just like an emotional roller coaster. And I couldn't even, it was like I was in shock. Like, what is actually happening? We were supposed to get our baby today, And we went and stayed with my friend who lived down there. And I just remember just being in shock. Like, how when you go through experiences where you're just like, it's just too much, that your body just like puts on that, like, what just happened? So that was really hard. I went home to like a house that was ready for a baby, like with all her clothes set out and her baskets, and now that was hard. Sorry, that was really hard. And people are like, thinking, well, she already had 3 biological kids, get over it. But each baby is so special. And you plan for it. And when it doesn't happen, it's really hard. And anyway, so I put away all the baby stuff. I just couldn't do it. So we took a break. And then we're like, okay, we had paid this agency $30,000. And they like started saying stuff like, that's just what happens with adoption. And it's like, no, that's a lot of money. We're not just going to let that go. But we're like, okay, well, we feel like we can't trust them anymore. And so we decided to get an attorney to get that back, because there were so many things. It was like, was this agency in on it? Like, where they had gotten to the point where they told us that she was scheduled to be induced. and like just different things. It was like, were they in on it to get the money? We don't even know. Like, we don't know who we can trust. So anyway, do you want me to keep going, or do you have any questions?
No, so tell us how you got from that point to where you actually did be able to bring home your little girls.
Okay, so we got an attorney, and he was local, like he was in the next town over. He was awesome, and he had adopted some kids from an agency that was more local. And so we looked into that agency, and we were very impressed, but we also like had the endorsement of our attorney behind us. Like, this must be a great company, you know? So we looked into them, but we were still really like, it's been a long time. Like, we want a baby. And so we started showing birth moms again, but it was taking a while. So we're like, well, let's look into foster care, because we could do foster to adopt and just focus on babies, you know, because you never know. Like, in our minds, we think there's just so many babies out there waiting to be adopted, but it's hard. And so we eventually ended up getting a baby, and she was a little girl, and we took care of her for several weeks. And it was really hard. Like, we had to go get her hair tested, because that's how they test for meth babies. And her hair tested so high that it was like the highest the judge had ever seen. It was so sad. But she seemed like a normal baby. Like, she didn't seem like a drug baby. She was just so sweet. We loved her. We really bonded with her. And we went to court, and the birth mom's rights got taken away because she kept, you know, she was addicted to drugs. And we're like, yes, we're going to be able to adopt her. And then at the last minute, distant relatives came forward. Their youngest child was 12. We're like, can't you see that we're just like a better fit for her? But the state really wants the families to, you know, be connected, which is understandable. But at the time, it wasn't. I was mad. I was really mad, because we were raising this baby. We're bonding to her. The real bonding happens, you know, when you're feeding and changing a child. And anyway, it was a really hard time. So the day came where I had to place her. So with foster care, you have to take the children to birth mom visits. And we took her to that last birth mom visit, and left her there with the birth mom. And then the other family was going to come. And I was just like bawling down the hall, like, this is so hard. Like, I wanted to keep her so much. We wanted to adopt her, but it wasn't supposed to be. And that was really hard. I keep saying this is really hard. And these experiences really like strengthened us, but they kind of scarred me. Like, I can still feel the residual effects of that. Like, I feel like I'm kind of like harder than I used to be. So anyway, so we're like, okay, well, maybe we could try to get more babies and just go through it. And like, they would show us as registered foster parents, they would show us emails of possible children. And we saw an email come through of 3 siblings. We're like, okay, we're just kind of like desperate, you know, we're just like, look, we can do this. And they've been in custody for a while. And they were 3 Hispanic siblings. And so we're like, okay. So we went to the place where they were living at the time. And there were 3 siblings. Let's see, one was 7, one was 4, and one was almost 3. And the middle one, I think he had like autism a little bit. But like, I still kind of had back pain. And I remember he like jumped on my back, and I was just like, okay. And he was really heavy. But they were so sweet. We really bonded to them. We ended up taking them home, and we taught them a lot. They came from a family that just wasn't like ours, so they learned a lot. We learned a lot. It was really hard. That middle child, he'd throw like major tantrums. And it was really hard because with foster care, you have to take them to appointments. So we would do the birth mom appointment. They were half hour away, their birth mom and stuff. And so most of the stuff was in that city. And so we would take them to dental appointments, school like assessments, therapy appointments, just so many appointments. And they had to get like oral surgery, so we had to go to that with them. So we started getting to the point where it was taking away from our biological kids. Like I was always running and gone. And our biological kids started saying stuff like, "You're leaving again?" And it was really playing a toll on me. One time several times I had to go to court with them to just like be there because I was the foster parent, and their dad got taken out of jail to be there, and he like had tattoos all over him, and he was like glaring at me. It was really hard. And there was one time where I had to stand up in court and defend myself because like the older kid was like making up stuff. And again, I felt like I was getting scarred from these situations. Like I've got to be strong, but I didn't feel strong. And we just kept plugging forward. But we knew that we wanted to grow our family. But these children, like at first we're like, well, we'll be able to adopt them. But then it was like, I don't think these are the children that we're supposed to have forever. It was just for the time. So they ended up going back with their mom, their birth mom, and we visited them the Christmas after and gave them some gifts and stuff. And we haven't kept in contact with them because with foster care, it's different. Anyway, so we felt burnout, like really burnout, but we're like, we feel like we're supposed to have more children. Why? Like, why do we have to keep going through all this? But we kept going forward because we're like, we could just give up. We're fine. 3 kids is good enough. We could just move forward. Maybe it's not meant for us. But then we just kept getting these little feelings like, it's not over. Let's just keep going. So we had already put our paperwork in with that agency that our attorney recommended, And so we're like, okay, let's call them up and just tell them we want to start showing birth moms again. So that summer, we just kind of spent time with our biological kids and just kept showing birth moms. And we had different things. They were trying really hard for us. Like there were these twins, a boy and a girl. They were African American, I believe. And we got placed with them. They, matched up, but they were through foster care. So it was kind of interesting. And I think they were out of New York. It didn't end up going through. So, and then just a few other things, a few other birth moms that decided to keep their children. And then one day we had gotten a text and an email saying, we have a situation. There's a baby that was born in Michigan, and they sent us her picture. They're like, okay, September 12th, they send us her information. And we're like, we feel really good about this. But it's interesting because earlier that day, Wes and I had a conversation, and we're like, well, maybe we should open it to boys. Maybe just open it all up and just be open to whatever. And I was like, okay, but I really wanted Lily to have a sister because I have 5 brothers and 2 sisters, and I love having my sisters. I adore my brothers, of course, but I was like, I really want Lily to have a sister. So we're like, okay, well, let's open it up. And then Wes went out in the front room and saw Lily playing, and he got a distinct impression that, no, she has a sister. She's going to have a sister. So that same day, we got that email and the text, and we felt really good about it. But we're like, we still had our guard up, because of our experience. We're like, she's going to change her mind, but we're, maybe, but we're just going to put it out there. So we flew out to Michigan, and we went to the hospital, and we're just still like, she's going to change her mind. How this isn't going to happen. Like, we're just kind of like hoping, praying, but just moving forward. And her best friend, so we were in this like waiting area with a pop machine, and her best friend comes in and is like getting a pop and kind of like eyeing us and thinking that's them. So she was kind of checking us out before we went in, but we didn't know that until later. But that was the only person that was in with the birth mom, was her best friend. And we went in there and we met the birth mom, and she was really shy and reserved and really sad because she knew what was happening. She loved her baby so much, but she knew that she couldn't raise her baby because of the circumstances she was in. She was a single mom, and anyway, ended up going through. And we brought Ivy to the hotel, but I still kept thinking she's gonna be taken from us, because I was like burned by the other experiences. But how much longer do we have? Am I talking too much?
No, you're good. Just finish up this story. This is
okay. So
what we want to hear.
Loving on her and just adoring her, and she's the cutest little baby ever with these these dark round big eyes, and just so cute, so much hair. We weren't used to that with our biological kids, didn't have as much hair. And just such a good baby. And we brought her home on the plane, and I just kept thinking someone's going to come in and just remove her from us and say, you can't take her. But it ended up, everything was so smooth. Like there was no hitch at all. And that's how we knew it was meant to be. And so 6 months later, we were able to legally adopt her, and then we sealed her to us in the temple, and it was such a beautiful experience. And she is so spunky, and we just adore her. We've bonded to her like we have to our other kids. I know that's hard to understand for people who haven't adopted, but right from the beginning, it's just, oh, she's just so sweet. And we just feel so honored to have her. Like, it's such a blessing. Like, when there's some older people that see us out and about with our kids, and they're like, oh, you're doing such a good thing. And I don't feel like it's a charity thing. Like, they're our children. Like, we just feel so honored to have them. Anyway, let me take a breath. So 18 months passed. We're like, okay, we felt like we didn't want to just adopt one child. We wanted to adopt another one, and we'd love to have another girl so they could kind of relate with each other, especially where Ivy is African American. We're just like, it would just be amazing if we could get another African American child and have it be a girl. But either way, I think we opened it to both boy or girl. We're like, either way, we just really would love her to have a sibling that's African American. So we started putting our profile out there again with this same agency because we had such a good experience with them, and they're really professional, and we were very impressed with them. And so we're like, okay, here's our profile. We had, got our paperwork up to date and did a home study. And then we started showing birth bombs, and, just like a few things fell through, and we just knew the process at that point. And then there was this one situation that came up that they had this birth mom that was staying in an apartment building with her 2 biological daughters, and it was really expensive. Like, I won't say numbers, but it was almost double of what Ivy cost. And you can't really put like a number on a person, but with adoption, it costs money. Let's just,
Yes.
face it. And so we had tried back then. I forgot to mention, we had tried going through our church to adopt, and in that process, they changed it. So they're like, well, if you have, let me take a drink in a second. They're like, if you have more than 2 biological children, then you aren't allowed to adopt because of just so many things. But we were grandfathered in, but the competition was so high amongst the people in Utah and within our church, and it just wasn't possible. So anyway, back to the story with this birth mom and her 2 biological girls. we're just like, that is just so expensive. We're like, there's no way. So we just passed on it and just like, that's probably not for us. But then we just kept feeling like maybe that situation is for us. And if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. It'll fall into place. And so we decided to pursue it after a few weeks. And we just had faith, and it all worked out. And she did see our profile and she did choose us. And she really liked that we had Ivy. I think she really saw that that would be a good fit for her child. And she was expecting a girl, and we met her, and she's awesome. She's awesome. So we ended up meeting, like we had like a meeting at Chuck E. Cheese, and we met her other girls, and it was fun. And Ivy just adored her because, you know, she looked like her, and she adored Ivy and held her. And she had this cute little pregnant belly, but we still had that, well, what if she changes her mind? Because she can always change her mind. So we're just like, had our guard up, but we were opening, you know, our arms were open to her, and we're just like, whatever happens, you just kind of go with the flow in life, you know? And so we ended up just keep going. We went forward with her. We got together with her a few more times. And we went to the hospital because she was scheduled to be induced. And I was able to be in with her, and she got a C-section. So I guess just scheduled for a C-section. I don't know if it's induced, but and it was kind of hard for me when she was getting the epidural because of my experience, but I didn't let that show. And I was in there, I suited down in the scrubs and everything, and it was such a special experience. So our daughter was born, and she really liked the name Violet, and we love it too. So that was really cool. But she went into the baby nursery, and they tested her, and they said she's kind of flaring her nostrils, so it seems like she's kind of struggling to get oxygen. And so we're like, oh no. And it was like borderline NICU, like, I don't know, she might have to go to the NICU. And come to find out, she was only 36 weeks, and they scheduled for her to get a C-section. And usually that's not supposed to happen, but her uterus was thin, and so they needed to because of like health concerns. But she was a really healthy baby. She was full term, but she was, you know, she was only 36 weeks, and she was like, you know, just over 5 pounds. And she didn't end up having to go into the NICU. She pulled out of it, and everything went well. We bonded to the birth mom. Like, the birth mom didn't have anybody in the hospital with her. And we really got to know her. We were there the whole time. We were so tired. And there was one time where we were, you know, we hadn't been getting much sleep because they offered us this room, and it was like the beds and the chair, so uncomfortable. So we ended up having to go to a hotel for one of the nights because I got a migraine. I was just exhausted. So she signed the papers on April 1st, and she said she was going to trick us and be like, April Fools, you know, but we're so glad she didn't because of what we've been through. We're like, we just can't handle anything else. So we got our Vi, and she is so spunky, and she's so fun. She loves to laugh, and she loves food. Like, everything's so tasty to her. And she just brings so much joy. And so Ivy and Violet, they are like besties. They have their moments, but it's such a blessing to have both of them together. And they're 18 months apart. So like raising them has been really great, but also really hard at first. It was almost like they were twins, because like when one would cry, the other one would cry. And yeah, it was hard. And I feel like I kind of got, it's weird to say, but I kind of got postpartum depression after them. And it's hard to explain because they aren't biologically mine, but being sleep deprived and having a baby is really hard, and you can get like the blues a little bit. and even though my hormones weren't like this, it was still really hard. But
Yeah, and I totally think that that's a thing too. I experienced that after I brought my daughter home, and it was just so much emotion in such a short amount of time,
yeah,
and it was a lot to process. So I think that the body and the brain, they have to take the time to process and work through these things.
yeah,
And it doesn't mean you don't love your children. It doesn't mean that
yeah,
you can't take care of them.
yeah,
But there is, there definitely is or can be a big adjustment period even when you haven't physically given birth to the
yeah.
baby.
Yeah, just like the no sleep and the constant feeding and changing, which bonds you to them. And it's just such a miracle. Like, I feel so blessed that we have been able to experience adoption. And then we were able to still her to us in the temple, and we keep communication with the birth moms through, like, so with Violet's birth mom, we text back and forth and then send pictures. Wes is usually in charge of that. And with Ivy's birth mom, the same thing, like pictures and messages every once in a while. It's getting less and less as they get older, but we do talk to our girls about, obviously they're adopted, they know they're adopted, and we talk to them about their birth moms, and they're excited to meet them. Like, Violet met her birth mom when she was a baby. Like, she came back and placed her other two daughters with a family just like an hour away from us. And that was cool. They did present that option for us to adopt them, but after the price and everything, there was no way we could afford them. But we weren't meant to adopt them. They were meant to go to the family that they're at. So it's cool that she has her biological sisters an hour away, and it's so cute to see them when they get together. They laugh a lot, and they're just very similar. So anyway, that's my story.
And I just have a couple just to wrap up. What do you think the most rewarding thing that you've experienced from adoption has been?
I don't know if I could pinpoint just like one thing, but just the main thing is I don't know if you guys believe in God or not, but I do. And I know that Heavenly Father has a plan for each one of us. And these girls were supposed to come to our family. And I know it because they're my daughters. They are my daughters. And I know that they have birth moms that are just like so, so special. I am so thankful to them for allowing us to have this opportunity. But just the bonding, like, these daughters of ours are just so special to us. That's the whole, like, thing that I'm just so thankful we didn't give up. We could have given up so easily and been justified, but that's it. We just love them. They're so special.
And they bring, I think a lot of times when you adopt, and like you said, some people will tell you, like, what a great thing you've done, and this is so wonderful. And I feel like in my own experience as well, and you've said this too, is that they have brought us so much joy and so much happiness, and we have become better people because these children have been in our lives. And so really, yes, maybe we've helped them in some financial way or something like that, and bringing these children into a home where, they have a home and food and things like that. In some cases, maybe not in others, but I feel like they have brought so much more than I could give to them. And it really is about our whole family and what they've brought into the family with their siblings and everything like that, that is, it's not a charity case at all. It's so much about uniting these families and them sharing their love with us as well.
Yeah, and I feel so thankful that they're African American. Like, at first we're like, well, maybe we should only adopt white baby because they look like us, and that it would just be so hard if they didn't look like us. But it has been such a blessing to adopt African American children. They are so beautiful, and it's opened a whole new world up to learning about their culture. And everybody's like, well, don't just treat them, they're just the same as you, because they're not. And it's really hard to, everybody has their own opinion, right?
Yeah.
But we love them so much, and their culture and their background and their ethnicity and their sweet spirits and personalities. So, yeah.
And then I just have one more to just end. If you could give advice to someone that was looking or even beginning the adoption process, what advice would you give to them?
Just start filling out the paperwork. Start praying if you believe in praying, but don't give up, because if you feel that like yearning, like maybe we should adopt, then you should like pursue it as much as you can. Don't give up, because the rewards are just priceless.
Okay, so thanks for coming. Thanks for being open and honest about your experiences. And I know one of the reasons that I felt like I needed to create this was to give people an opportunity to understand the process a little bit more. And everybody's story is, of course, a little different, and everybody comes into it from a little different place. But I want to be real and honest about, sometimes there are so many hardships along the way. Sometimes there are roadblocks that you think you can't get past. And there are definitely difficult things, and there will continue to be difficult things because it's a child and you're raising a child. Yep. So no matter what, it's going to present difficult things. But I want people to understand what those are so that they can make an educated decision about, is this right for me? And is this right for my family? And also to just get some awareness that, you know, maybe there are things that fall through, but if you really have that belief and that strong desire, and you really feel like there is a child out there that's supposed to come to you, that things will eventually fall into place. And I've seen that a lot. And in talking to these people, that the difficulties and the trials seem insurmountable, but they are overcome when that baby is supposed to be your baby. Mm-hmm. And so thank you for sharing that and being honest about the difficulties that you went through, but then the joy that came after. Yep. As your babies who were supposed to come home with you, those were your babies. Yeah. Found their way to you. So thank you so much for coming on and for sharing that. And hopefully this will help other people get an idea and a little more information about what adoption is and what it can offer to your family. So thank you so much.
We'll see you. Have a great day.
Bye. You too. Bye.